Yeah, as I said, I'm Paul Serle, 2013 Nuffield Scholar, and my study topic was Profitability and Opportunities in Biological Farming. I'm sponsored by the Sydney Mire Fund, and I'd like to thank them for their sponsorship and support of Nuffield Australia over the years. So, start off with what is biological farming. Biological farming is an ecologically sound farming method with a focus on improving soil microbiology and respecting the natural processes that occur. As farmers, we need to understand how farming practices impact soil biology, and our focus should be on the creation of living soil with healthy cycles within it. So my journey in biological farming started several years ago when we made a decision to reduce the use of chemicals and artificial fertilisers in our business and incorporate some biological inputs like compost and foliar sprays. Then just improving soil health, plant and livestock health. However, I found I was simply swapping my chemical bill for a biological one, and everyone claimed they had the answer to my problems, but it was always a cost. And the other issue was finding quality inputs, quality compost and the like. So that was the dilemma that I had, and that was the catalyst for my study. So my study tour consisted of a 3-week Latin American tour arranged by Region Ag and Mass Humus with 16 other Aussie biological farmers, which could best be described as a biological GFP. Mass Humus are based in Mexico, and they educate farmers over there in biological practices and especially on-farm practices that they can use to reduce costs. And then I did further travel to New Zealand, US, Canada, and that's actually a picture of the 16 guys standing in one of the lettuce fields. So what did we see in Latin America? It was 12 farms, including bananas, roses, avocados, lettuce, veggies and livestock, all ranging in size from 10 to several thousand acres. Most of them were exporting their organic produce to the US. The farmers were utilising simple on-farm methods of microbe reproduction and mimicry to address issues of soil health and fertility. They were using an anaerobic fermentation process which utilised cow manure or paunch along with a food source to reproduce beneficial microbes, and that formed the basis of their fertility program. These brews were fermented for 30 days before being applied to the soil or as a foliar. And they could be stored for several months once they were brewed. And also, they were using an anaerobic fermentation process to ensure that they were only brewing the bugs that were in the manure or the paunch, and no other nasty bugs from the outside air. Other sources of microbes other sources of microbes such as silage and decomposing forest materials were used in these fermentation processes. They were also producing on-farm compost to add organic matter and biology to the soil, and most of the farms had a closed system where they brought in very little of their fertility requirements. One of the farms we visited in Ecuador was a good example of the success these farms were having by adopting biological practices. It was a super intensive soil-based monoculture, producing long-stemmed roses which were exported to 27 countries. They'd been previously using conventional farming practices where input costs were around $30,000 a hectare for fungicides and the like. But conversion to a biological system saw a reduction of input cost of about $4,100 a hectare. So huge reductions in costs just through adoptions of biological practices. They achieved these. So while they did that, they also achieved some quite impressive increases in production. 31% increase in stem length and 58% reduction in water use, to the point where the farm owner actually had to constantly tell his workers not to turn the taps on because they just were used to the old system of watering on a daily basis. So these increases were achieved by re-inoculating the soil with beneficial biology through 6 months of intense biofertiliser application, which is those brews, soil. Veggies were also planted as interrow in between the roses to open up the soil and served a dual purpose of feeding the farm's workers because they didn't have access to fresh fruit and veggies. And they did all this just by establishing a fairly large biofactory on the farm. The concepts utilised by the Latin American farmers we visited were best summarised by Pacho here, a small organic veggie grower, passionate educator. He's educated some 19,000 farmers, consultants and students over 2 decades. And he talked about the 3 M's. Re-inoculate the soil with beneficial microbes to aid in nutrient cycling, address mineral balance, and increase organic matter in the soil to increase water holding capacity, hold minerals, and provide a home for biology. And increasing this organic matter, he claimed, was the hardest thing to achieve, but it was the best way to establish a sustainable farming system. Moved on then to New Zealand. We visited a very interesting goat dairy owned by Jeff Graham. 450 goats, housed 24/7 to help control parasites, worms and the like. That was just worm problems when they were raised out in the fodder. So all the fodder was carted into the goats as either fresh chop or silage. It's known as cut. Yeah. So the forage production is based on a herbal ley consisting of 12 different plants: chicory, plantain, clovers, lucerne and a variety of grasses. And Jeff adopted a biological production system where he addressed the mineral balance in the soil using organic soil principles, and compost was made from the bedding that these goats were housed in to improve the soil biology. And it's seen some pretty good increases in production when he moved to a biological system. He increased his dry matter production from 14 tonnes a hectare to around 23 tonnes a hectare. And he could verify that because every load of forage that was cut was checked for bricks, which is sugar levels, and related to the nutrient density of the fodder and also dry matter. And he had roots up to 1.2 metres deep, accessing a much greater level of fertility and moisture availability. And interestingly, he had milk check of about $130,000 a month from just 40 hectares. In the US, we looked at several grazing enterprises utilising multiple cell grazing. These farms were grazing large numbers of livestock in smaller areas to affect significant changes in biomass production and fertility. Greg Judy, a leading mob grazer from Missouri, was achieving increased grass production, better weed control, increased plant diversity and organic matter, and had lowered his cost of production to approximately 10% of the standard industry cost, utilising this form of grazing management. Greg was also looking at using a complementary pastored chicken enterprise to add on behind his cows to aid in parasite control and add extra income. The problem he was having there was that they've got some biting and sucking flies in the US that lay their larvae in the eggs in the manure, and the larvae hatch out about 3 days after the manure was on the ground. And they were going to utilise the chickens to come along and scratch around that manure, eat the larvae, and to reduce the problem. I asked him about the eggs, and he said he didn't really mind whether he made anything from them or not. He thought there was really benefits in just the holistic use of chickens to solve a parasite problem. And Greg set up his own retail business supplying grass-fed beef and lamb to local consumers. And many of the farmers we visited were also utilising subtle energy principles to attempt to achieve increase in production or decrease costs. And much of this work is based on the theory that everything has an electromagnetic field associated with it, and the links between those fields. So they include things like biodynamics, radionics, and geomancy. So what are the opportunities that arise from adopting a biological system? A big one, I think, is carbon sequestration. It is estimated that agriculture will provide half the necessary greenhouse gas reductions required to stabilise the Earth's atmosphere with appropriate management of the soil. And the soil has 10 times the ability to sequester carbon than what biomass does. So I think that's a really big benefit from adopting some carbon or increased soil, from increased soil carbon levels, increased productivity, reduced plant and weed pressure, and boosted water holding capacity. There are also opportunities for farmers to establish retail businesses that link them directly with the consumer and remove the middleman. Organic certification is possible, and possible premiums that can increase productivity. There's also the opportunity to produce nutrient-dense food for a consumer that's looking for a more healthy and a better quality food. And the last one is just sustainability of our farming systems by returning the humus to the soil and providing a benefit there. So what are the opportunities for my business as I saw when we were travelling? I see some major production increases possible through adopting bulk and cell grazing, through increased pasture reduction and soil health, allowing increased carrying capacity. And soil health is critical. So we plan on setting up our own biofactory and trial the use of various biofertiliser brews applied through our irrigation to further promote soil biology and help with the work we've already tried to do with the farm. There's a possibility to stack complementary enterprises onto our existing grazing, which allows us to create retail opportunities. So we looked at things like pasture layers or broilers and branded lamb products direct to the consumer. And I'm also excited to explore what biodynamics and subtle energies can add to our business. So just to finish up, I'd like to make some acknowledgements. I'd like to thank my wife Kylie and our children for supporting me throughout this journey. It was wonderful and really special time for us to have Kylie accompany me on part of my studies, and probably just would work for her after a very difficult year in 2013 when I was away on Nuffield travels and she had some health problems. Also, I'd like to thank my parents, especially my father, who kept the farm functioning in my absences. For Nuffield, for giving me the amazing opportunity to study a topic I was really passionate about. And finally, once again, to my sponsor, the City Life Fund. Thank you.